When my kids were little, we used to keep track of their growth on the wall in our kitchen. And when we moved from that house, I was really sad to have to leave that behind. And so for that reason, we have designed this Grow With Me growth chart, and it's going to be a really fun make. My kids have grown up a little bit and they're probably too big for this growth chart, but I do have some nieces and nephews that I hope will use this to track their growth. And this is a really fun project. You're going to need one charm pack, and for this I have used Effie Woods by Deb Strain for Moda. And then you're going to need 1 yard of background fabric, and then also 1 yard of backing with a horizontal seam. So be sure to grab all of that, and then let's dive into making this. This is super simple. We're working with 2.5-inch squares and a few half-square triangles, and then we're going to make some really fun flying geese trees to add that detail on the side. So to begin with, let's do a quick refresh of the letters that spell out grow. I've done quite a few projects with these letters. I have a full quilt pattern that's available for it, but we are just going to make the 4 letters of grow. So let's start with that. To make all of the letters, you're going to need 17 of your half square triangles. And to do that, we're just going to take our charm packs and we're going to cut them into 2.5-inch squares. So I have 1 of my background squares and 1 of my print squares here. And we're just going to put those right sides together. And then we can take our ruler and a pen, if you are so inclined, and we can draw a line corner to corner. And for this particular pattern, we are going to sew directly on that line because we want our half square triangles to stay 2.5 inches. All right, and so now we're just going to trim this off so that we have our 1/4-inch seam allowance, but I did want to show you that you can actually move over a 1/2 inch and do another stitch line. So then you will have 2 half square triangles, the one that we need for this project and some smaller ones that you can add to your stash. Either one of these options work. If you don't think you're ever going to use those tiny little half square triangles, then just don't worry about it. And we can just toss that in the scrap bin. But let's go ahead and trim these off, and then we can press them back. I always like to press to the dark side. There we go. That is ready to go. All right, so now let's lay out our letter, and I have a G already ready, so we're going to make our R. Right-hand side of our letters, we are going to add a sashing strip, and this is a 2.5-inch strip. I have that ready to go here, so you want to measure that. Measure the height of your letters, but it finishes up with your seam allowance, and you're just going to cut that 2.5-inch strip to fit. Go, and now we can press that back. And you will just repeat this for all 4 of your letters until they are ready to go. So let me go ahead and move this out of the way, and we will move over to the trees. So you'll notice in the project behind me, there are 3 different heights of trees. They're all based out of the same trunk and just a different number of flying geese units on top. So we have our little tree with 2, a tree with 3, and 4 for our last one. And then to make those, we're just going to cut our charm packs in half, and then we're going to trim those down so that they measure 2.5 by 4.5 inches. And then we have 2.5-inch background squares that we are going to snowball on either side to make our flying geese units. So if you're not familiar with the term snowball, that just means we're going to sew corner to corner so that we make a new corner on our block. So let's go ahead and take this to the machine. And for this one, I didn't draw a line. You absolutely could. I'm just going to use my diagonal seam tape. Trim that. I'm just going to use my scissors because I have them handy. And then we'll roll this back. And now we're going to add our other 2.5-inch square to the other side in the exact same way. And because we've trimmed this down to 4.5, it's going to give us the overlap that we need at the top so that we don't lose the peak of our tree in the seam allowance. There we go. So now on these, you do want to check and make sure that they measure 2.5 by 4.5. You might need to do a little bit of squaring because you'll notice in the project that we have some sashings that we want to line up. And so we're just going to take some time and make sure that these blocks measure accordingly. So I'm going to lay this on my mat. And I love the 2.5 by 8-inch ruler for projects like this because it makes squaring really simple. I can just lay this on top. And there are a few places where I have a little bit of overlap. So I am just going to trim off this bottom edge a bit. Just shave that, and then I can flip this around. And I have a little bit to trim off here. And then now I know that my block has stayed the size that I wanted it to be, which is that 2.5 by 4.5. So now we're just going to sew those together, and you can see how here we have sets of 2, sets of 3, or sets of 4. Now let's talk about making the trunk, which is the base of our tree. There is a really cute wood grain print. There's multiple wood grain prints, but I use this taupey color for my tree, and I actually have a little cutting diagram for you to show you how I got all the cuts I need for the 6 different trees that you see in this growth chart behind me out of my one 5-inch square. So this is a slightly lighter version of the one that I used, but it's still that cute wood grain and it will give you the same impression. So what we're going to do is we're going to measure over 1.5 inches and make a cut. Whoops, there we go. 1.5 inches, and we're going to make 3 1.5 inch cuts, just like so. And this is our little bit of waste. And then now I'm going to turn this, and I can use, again, my ruler, and I'm going to cut these in half so that they measure 1.5 inches by 2.5. And that will give me the 6 tree trunks that I need. Just like so. And that will give you enough out of the one 5-inch square for all of your tree blocks. And then for the side background pieces, those are going to be cut out of your background fabric, and they measure 2 by 2.5. So we're going to grab 2 of those so we can put one on either side. There's the first one. I'm just going to finger press that for now and add the other side. And then we can press this back. Looks great. From there, we can just add that to our flying geese units. It should measure the exact same, that 2.5 by 4.5. So let's just sew these together. And you can see how the trees begin to take shape. And so then we have the finished ones here with 2, 3, and 4 peaks at the top. And so you're actually going to make 2 of these with the 4 flying geese and 3 of these with the 3 flying geese. And then you're only going to need 1 of the trees with 2. So that's what you're going to make. And then to set it all together, we've just used a 2.5-inch sashing between the letters, between the trees, and then all the way around the outside, really just on the sides of the project, so that we can mark those growth milestones with a fabric marker or a micron pin to keep track of those and not have to paint over or lose them. We can hold on to it forever. So I hope you enjoyed this project. I think it's super fun. I just finished it off with some really simple straight line quilting on the machine. So this is one you can do at home, start to finish, and I hope you enjoyed it and have a wonderful week. Hey everyone, it's Misty. Thanks for watching at home. If you aren't already a part of our Missouri Star family, be sure to subscribe and hit the bell if you want a notification every time we release a new video. I'll see you next Monday on the newest episode of At Home.